Now let's begin by telling you that following a raid on the Nigeria Labour Congress headquarters by security operatives, organized labour is demanding an apology from the federal government and the Nigeria Police Force. At a press conference held at Labour House in Abuja, the NLC firmly rejected the police justification for the raid, which claimed they were searching for a terrorist financier allegedly hiding on the second floor of the building. The NLC further accused the federal government of attempting to provoke and undermine them by linking the Congress to the Labour Party, describing this as part of a broader hybrid war against the organization. The NLC has vowed to take stringent action against the federal government and the Nigeria police if the demanded apologies are not issued. Now joining me for more on this is Benson Upa, Head of Information and Public Relations of the NLC. Good afternoon, Mr. Upa. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Good. Now, sir, you and your body have rejected the response by the police in its entirety. Now, can you elaborate on why you find their explanation unacceptable, please?
We've tried to explain that in our press statement, but you know, everything the police have said falls flat on its face. First, they said they came to raid a bookshop and to arrest the terrorists running the bookshop, which they claimed was on the second floor. What brought them to the 10th floor? And what did they do on the 10th floor? And when they went to the second floor, what did they do there? But beside that, the police claim that they have been on the trail of this international terrorists. Why did they wait for office hours to expire before they sprang the operation? At the time they came, did they actually hope to catch the terrorists in the bookshop at that time? And between the terrorists and the books, which has greater value? Secondly, if the police, as they claim, knew of the existence of these terrorists with a long history of destabilizing nations, and they allowed him to operate freely for so long, shouldn't the police be held culpable? And if they didn't know of his existence for so long, shouldn't that be considered a major intelligence failure? But finally, if the police knew that such credible threat did exist, why wouldn't they have the courtesy of sharing this intel with the leadership of the Congress? And if they felt that sharing it would compromise the operation, couldn't they at least share that at H hour? So clearly, the police have been beaten about the bush, looking for excuses for their blunders.
Mr.
For us at NLC, the sovereignty, the integrity, the independence, and national interest are issues we do not play with. They come to us naturally. We do not do them because of salaries or allowances
All right, Mr. Upa.
or huge budgets.
Mr. Upa, I have another question.
We do that as our duty to this country.
Yes, sir.
And we do not need a lecture from anybody
All right.
on how to secure this country.
Now, Mr. Upa, I have another question for you. Now, you have stated that the federal government is attempting to provoke organized labor and is waging war, what you describe as a hybrid war. Could you please clarify what you mean by this hybrid war and how it relates to the recent raid on the NLC headquarters?
We simply mean that the federal government is waging wars on various domains, or at various domains, whichever one you prefer. Various fronts. 1 or 2 days before this protest started, we received a letter from the Register of the Trade Unions, who, relying on Section 15 of the Trade Unions Act, subsections 2 to 4, threatened us on our relationship with Labour Party, all because a discredited leader of the party, one time discredited, is working with them. Let me tell you, Abura is working with. So government came from that perspective. Secondly, government is working to reduce the tenure of executives of trade unions to 2 years. And I want to tell you, based on the provisions of the corpus of labor law, that constitutes an interference in the affairs of the trade unions. And we are saying government should keep off. But if government is insistent on 2 years, then 2 years should apply across the board, including the office of the president of this country.
All right, then, Mr. Upa.
So I have cited 3 domains.
Yes, you have indeed.
At least in addition to the raid itself.
Yes, indeed, you have. Mr. Upa, we wish we had more time to take more, but we'll have to cut it short here. But thank you very much for joining us on the news.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you indeed. And now, away from that, President Bola Tinubu and his Equatorial Guinea counterpart Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo have signed a landmark agreement on the Gulf of Guinea pipeline project, further strengthening their partnership for mutual development. The agreement addresses key aspects such as legislative and regulatory measures, pipeline establishment and operation, natural gas transit, pipeline ownership, and overreaching principles. During the signing ceremony, the Nigerian leader, who is on a 3-day official visit to Equatorial Guinea, highlighted that this agreement will unlock new opportunities for gas exploration and job creation. The two leaders also engaged in discussions on various critical issues, including employment creation, food security, multilateral relations, and conflict resolution mechanisms across the continent. In the meantime, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has called for the establishment of specialized courts to aid the speedy trial of oil theft cases as well as other financial crimes in the country. The chief of the staff of the executive chairman of the commission made the call during an investigative hearing at the House of Representatives, expressing worry that the absence of such measures has caused the delay of many of its cases. Now joining us to discuss this is President Ijaw Youth Congress, Udengs Iradiri. Mr. Iradiri, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm former president. I'm not the current president.
Thank you. Apologies for that. Now, what are your thoughts on the call for the establishment of special court to aid the speedy trial of oil thefts?
Well, for me, I'm just surprised because what are you setting up a special court? Are we going to expand the scope of corruption for judiciary again? Because at the end of the day, It is the community peasants that will be tried in such courts. The big guns who pay campaign funds to the tune of 50, 100, 10, $1 million are the ones who are involved in this bunkering, and they will always pay their way. If our judiciary today have reduced itself to the table of buying and selling, adding oil theft to set up special courts for oil theft will be just expanding the scope of money making for the Nigerian judiciary. Nigeria is not serious. If we are serious, we can deal with these issues. Our courts will be able to, if we have men of integrity, we will deal with all our problems. Our problem does not lie in whether we should go and police the pipelines. It lies in our leadership selection process. Once we have the right leader that the people have voted for to do his job, we will solve this problem once and for all. I saw an NPC talking about contracts, huge contract in millions of dollars to measure the total quantity of oil that leaves it. Every pipeline has a flow meter. The IOCs over the years, when they have been reporting 2 million barrels, 2.1 million barrels, how did they get to that point? Because every pipeline comes with a flow meter. Since the divestment started and Nigeria started taking over the running of the oil and gas sector, you started hearing about these unreported products, crude oil that they are carrying from one point to the other. There is nothing wrong with the laws. Our leadership selection process is faulty, and so it's throwing to us leaders who come to just make the country dry. People who are not patriotic in their job. Our security agencies, if they are serious, this thing will stop. It is not community people that are stealing this oil. This community, this court they are talking about will be another round of making money for judiciary. The EFCC is a toothless bulldog. They just back, they cannot bite. You take, somebody steals 1 billion. Now it's in Nigerian Palace, you steal 1 billion. Just keep like 300 million and pump it into the EFCC. They will send their own lawyers to destroy the case in the interest of the highest bidder. We are just running around circles. Since I was a young boy, I've been talking about this oil theft today. I'm still talking about it because we will never get the right people until we tinker with our leadership selection process.
Mr. Radiri, obviously, you've just told about how you feel about the courts themselves specifically and how this is pretty much not necessary. But have you also identified the costs associated with setting up and also maintaining these courts? Are they also a concern to you?
I don't believe in it. So for me, I just think that we're just wasting our time. Because go to the blue waters, you will see the vessels as me and you were talking now. They are loaded. They don't report to the country. But the NNPC knows. You forget. And this oil theft comes in a lot of dimensions. NNPC borrowed $3 billion. And that $3 billion to pay back 12 point something billion. How much was the benchmark for the per barrel that they used to do that loan? Assuming the oil price goes to, the price is fluctuating, at what rate did they borrow the money? The excess, where is it going to? Who is going to measure the quantity that these people are taking? How can you borrow $3 billion and somebody is going to be, you are going to pay back $12 billion? Look, something is fundamentally wrong. We are looking for court now. After court, we will look for church. After church, we will look for Babalawo. Are we serious? So for me, I don't want to be talking about cost of this thing because why can I be talking of something I don't believe in? Look, they cannot produce diesel. The Niger Delta people, young boys who are looking for work, are producing fine, clean diesel, better than what they are importing from Eastern Europe.
So, Mr. Radiri, let me come in there and ask you what your suggestion would be regarding these boys who are in the Niger Delta actually producing. What's your suggestion?
I have always said, I suggested to the last president, create buffer zones, clusters in each state, and say NNPC, you are going to be giving them 1,000 barrels. The former president, the vice president, while touring the Niger Delta, said they will be giving 1,000 barrels to these boys so that NNPC will manage it, buy back all what they have produced, and then pump it back into the system. These boys have developed their technology. They are no longer using fire. They are using generators and electric burners. So technology is already growing in that sector. Why are we criminalizing it when we cannot produce this AGO? Go to the Niger Delta. When did you hear that kerosene was scarce? But kerosene is what the local people are using. They are producing it in the Niger Delta. Why not government step in? Since your method is failing, step in and create buffer areas in the states. All of you have put yourself into unions. When I was IYC president, we put these boys to unions and we brought them before government. So government knows the people that are supposed to be doing this, and then they are cooking here. Government is coming to pick it. You are giving them, you are making money, you are saving the environment, you are creating jobs, and you are stopping this police and thief with Nigerian military and the boys. Because the boys are buying arms because they believe that you the thief the big one, me I take this small, you say you will stop me. What is the instrument of coercion? The gun. So the boys go and acquire those guns and confront them because they know they are also stealing. So if we know that this is the problem, let us create buffer. Dangote can produce diesel, but these boys will produce diesel overnight. By tomorrow morning, you will see more than 1 million liters of diesel. Is something wrong with us as a people?
Mr. Radiri.
But because these people are also funding elections, they are big players in the system. Nobody wants to go there and name them. The banks that raise the LCs.
We're on a tight schedule, but thank you very much for your submissions. They're very clear and quite intelligent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. And now to business-related stories. Nigeria's headline inflation rate has experienced its first decline since December 2022, dropping from 31.19% to 33.4% in July 2024. This information was revealed in the Consumer Price Index inflation report released by the National Bureau of Statistics on Thursday. The report highlighted a 0.79% decrease in headline inflation for July. However, the July inflation figure remains 9.32% higher than the rate recorded in the same period in 2023. On a month-on-month basis, the headline inflation rate for July 2024 stood at 2.28%, slightly lower than the 2.31% report in June 2024. Now, joining us to discuss this is public affairs analyst Johnson Adigbola. Mr. Adigbola, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, nice meeting you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Now, we'd like to know what were the primary economic factors contributing to the recent decrease, no matter how small, in Nigeria's inflation rate, after 19 months, no less?
Actually, let me just quickly itemize some measure that's been put in place by the federal government. Number one, about the zero tax imposed on imported goods, I think is one of the factors. Then another factor that I may say that government spend huge amount of money on the security architecture so that to control the insurgents in the northern region in order to allow the farmer to continue with the normal production.
So security is one, and then the zero tax. So how has the drop in inflation impacted key economic indicators such as maybe consumer spending and investment levels, and also economic growth as well?
Actually, now if you look at the current rates, of our GDP, the GDP has increased, and if you look at the inflationary measure as well, it has reduced. As it is now, it is 3.40. Compared to the last month, which is 3.19, I think, which shows that the federal government is working.
Okay, so these sound like just numbers. How would it actually affect the common man walking on the street looking for his next meal if these numbers continue to come down?
Number one, it will improve cost of living, number one, and it will also increase the purchasing power of the consumer. However, if you look at the perishable goods now, like tomatoes, like yam as it is now, is currently decreasing in Nigerian markets.
So that's the consumer, the individual consumer. Recently, manufacturers came out to tell that they can't increase prices anymore if the rates continue to go up. Will this affect or maybe decrease inflation? Would it affect interest rates? And also, how might this influence borrowing and lending behaviors within the economy?
Actually, you see, government put like a fiscal and monetary measures in place. In respect of the fiscal policy, which I said in my introductory remarks, in respect of zero tax on the consumer goods, and increase the level of productivity. And what makes a company of X, Y, Z then move from this country to another sister country is because of the maquiladora market looking for cheap labor. But as it is now, I think that most of the companies who left Nigeria are coming back based on the measures.
Is 1 month enough to tell that these guys would come back? Will this continue? Will the trend continue? Will the inflation rates continue to drop? And honestly now, because I mean, after 19 months, that's a long time to wait for just a few figures, a few units to drop.
Actually, 1 month cannot be enough because if you look at, number one, let us talk about the moribund companies in Nigeria who has been dilapidated for over the years. The government is now trying to revive those industries. And if you also look at the investment as well, I think government is gaining confidence in the eyes of the investors, so that by the time the government now started establishing or expanding the economic growth, most of the investors who left can come back. And if you now look at the indices of the employment as well, truly we are experiencing unemployment rate is increasing as at 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And I think that the policies in which the central bank putting in place in order to reduce the lending and to improve the agricultural facilities so that those farmers can go back to their farm.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for joining us, sir. Do stick with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll still got more coming your way. But now we understand that the National Judicial Council has recommended Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ekun as the next Chief Justice of Nigeria. This recommendation came during an impromptu closed-door meeting which was rescheduled from Friday to Thursday in Abuja. Justice Olukayode Ariola, the outgoing Chief Justice of Nigeria, will retire on August 22, having reached the mandatory retirement age of 70. The NJC also made recommendations for 27 others as judges of the State High Court. We'll bring you more details in our subsequent bulletin on that. Now, the House of Representatives Tribunal has nullified the election of Simon Atigwe, the member representing Igboeze North Udene Federal Constituency. Atigwe, a candidate of the People's Democratic Party, was initially declared the winner of the rerun election held on February 3, 2024 by the Independent National Electoral Commission. He reportedly secured 23,863 votes, narrowly defeating Dennis Agbo of the Labour Party, who garnered 23,226 votes. Agbo, who originally won the February 25, 2023 election, but was unseated by an appellate court ruling, had petitioned the tribunal to challenge Atigwe's victory. Welcome back. Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has called for appropriate recovery measures for the national press following widespread strikes by the media industry over economic pressures and perceived threats to press freedom. Faye, in a statement, emphasized the need to renew the dialogue with the national press, acknowledging that the media deserves the government's particular attention and tailored recovery measures. In addition to requesting that the government, and more especially the Minister of Communications, make sure the nation's press code is followed, Faye also asked that the press be properly run in a spirit of openness and in compliance with laws. And Zimbabwe's opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, is urging the leaders of the Southern African Development Community to facilitate dialogue and pursue an inclusive resolution to the political and legitimacy crisis in Zimbabwe. This appeal comes just days before the 44th SADC summit in Harare, despite reports of multiple arrests and human rights violations in the lead up to the regional event. In the meantime, the SADC Industrial Week is underway as part of the preparations for the summit. Now, to discuss this live with me, I'm joined by CCC spokesperson Promise Mnazi. He joins us from Harare, Zimbabwe. Mr. Promise, you're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So, would like to know what specific actions has the Citizens Coalition for Change proposed for creating dialogue and also resolving the political crisis in Zimbabwe as ahead of the 44th SADC meeting.
Well, we have written several times to SADC to inform them of the need for SADC to facilitate an inclusive reform process in Zimbabwe that is based on the elections of the August 2023, which did not go well. And we believe that SADC has got an important role in terms of facilitating dialogue between the opposition and the ruling ZANU-PF party. We believe that the situation in the country requires all hands on the deck, and SADC has a positive role to play in terms of facilitating to ensure that there is dialogue between the leading presidential contenders in Zimbabwe.
What about the arrests and the violations that we keep hearing about? How's that affecting the preparations for the meeting, the 44th meeting?
Obviously, the arrests and detentions and intimidation of people is an indicator of the unstable political situation in the country, is an indicator of the insecurity and paranoia of the ruling party, because they know that they are sitting on a time bomb. And this must have demonstrated to SADC that there is need to resolve the simmering political crisis in Zimbabwe. And SADC has a role in ensuring that these arrests, these detentions are stopped. Surely, I think it must prickle the conscience of SADC. You cannot come to Zimbabwe on the back of persecution of human rights defenders, of opposition activists, and opposition leaders in Zimbabwe. SADC must be able to say, no, Zimbabwe cannot persecute its own people on account of hosting us.
So the CCC has called for this industrial week, but how exactly is this going to contribute to addressing the political and legitimate crises in Zimbabwe?
Well, I think that it is going to, practically it is important for the people of Zimbabwe to be given the opportunity to demonstrate their disquiet over the situation in Zimbabwe. And this right is encapsulated in the country's constitution. Zimbabweans have a right to demonstrate as long as they notify the police and follow the requirements of that procedure to allow the demonstration to take place. And accordingly, we followed every procedure. We've done everything to the book in terms of the law to ensure that the processes that will unfold are processes that are within the confines of the laws of Zimbabwe, in particular, the Constitution.
Well, Mr. Mnazi, I want to say thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insight.
Thank you.
Promise Mnazi, their spokesperson, CCC Zimbabwe. Thank you. Now, Sudanese residents in Port Sudan have expressed caution and cautious hope as U.S.-sponsored talks aimed at securing a ceasefire in the devastating conflict in Sudan begin in Switzerland. The United States has urged Sudan's army to participate in the negotiations, which have commenced with only one faction at the table, the rival Rapid Support Forces. Despite this development, some residents remain skeptical about the potential success of the ceasefire talks.
بنشوف انه يا اخي كل خطوه ايجابيه هي ممكن تدفع وتطلع الشعب السوداني من السلبيات الموجوده فيه، او الشعب السوداني من المعاناه الحقيقيه الموجود هو فيه. بنسال الله سبحانه وتعالى ان تكون هي فاتحه خير او خطوه لخير. اذا كانت امريكا هي اللي قايمه بهذا الدور الان فلا باس من ذلك. اذا قامت روسيا بهذا الدور نرحب بها برضه. اذا قامت الصين بهذا الدور يرحب بها. اي جهه دوليه تدعو لوقف الحرب وللسلام يجب أن يرحب بها.
نرى أن الوساطة الأمريكية ليس لها حل لنا كدولة سودانية، لأنه هي الذي حاصرت لنا 30 سنة، هو الذي من خلف الخواليس فيها تدعيمات في موضوع بتاعة الميليشيا الدعم السريع، والقرار الذي اتخذ
World Rep. Now, President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced significant advances by Ukrainian forces in Russia's Kursk region, with gains of up to 2 kilometers in some areas. Ukrainian troops have reportedly captured dozens of settlements, marking the largest offensive on Russian soil since World War II. Interior Minister Igor Klimenko also announced plans to establish a buffer zone to shield border communities from Russian shelling. Meanwhile, the neighboring Russian region of Belgorod has declared a state of emergency, prompting the evacuation of 11,000 residents. Despite Russian claims of repelling Ukrainian advances in Kursk, Ukrainian forces have reportedly seized control of over 800 square kilometers of Russian territory. For more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, AIA Hagen. AIA, good afternoon. Thank you for joining. All right, so AIA, if you can hear me, you want to tell us what the latest on the Ukrainian incursion in Russia is? It's, new information. Nobody thought that this was going to happen, but here it is now, Ukraine getting into the Russian territory. What's going on currently?
That's right. The incursion that started on August the 6th continues. So overnight, the Ukrainian Air Force says that it downed 29 Russian drones that were launched overnight by Russia, which targeted 8 Ukrainian regions. The governor, of these regions said that there were no casualties reported in the downing of those drones. Now, the Ukraine is continuing to incur into Russia, into those border regions. It says it has a clear right to use any weapons that were given to them by the United Kingdom, by the United States, and it's thought that they are using those weapons, those tanks, as part of this incursion into this region. Kiev are saying that they're making deeper inroads into the Russian territory as the incursion in the Kursk region now reaches its 10th day. Now, the Ukraine has also said that it will set up humanitarian corridors to let civilians leave the area where the troops are making the most offenses. And Russia has insisted that it is pushing the Ukrainian troops back, but the evidence on the ground speaks otherwise.
All right, so AIA, it seems we're not clear exactly what Ukraine's goal here might be. So what exactly do they plan to do with the seized territory?
Well, Ukraine doesn't want to keep any of the seized territory. That's not the point of this incursion. That's not why they're doing this. Part of it is to just prove that they can. This absolutely caught Vladimir Putin by surprise. When he talks about it, he doesn't call it an incursion or call it an invasion. He says events that are happening at the border. But it's also about giving a boost to a weary country, a country that's been at war for over 2 years. They have a war-weary population that needed a win, and this was a way of doing that. And it's also about Volodymyr Zelensky being able to say, this is how I'm using the weapons, the tanks, etc., that are being donated or being given or being sold to us by countries around the world. Now, it's not clear how long Ukraine will try to hold on to the territorial gains, or if it will use them as a bargaining chip for peace talks in the future. But this was more about delivering a decisive blow to President Putin, and more about giving their country and their troops a boost that was so needed after a couple of years of war.
I fear Russia is not a country that, well, one would say would simply sit down and let its territory be taken. Judging from history, what could their response be to this incursion by Ukraine?
Well, that's right. Russia are used to being the aggressors. They're not used to being the people that our aggression is shown to. You could see Vladimir Putin stepping up his incursion in Ukraine, trying to take more territory himself. And there's no doubt that this is absolutely a blow to him, a blow to his troops, a blow to his ego. 100%, because this was completely unexpected. After 2.5 decades in power, Mr. Putin likes to come across as Mr. Security. The only person that can keep this vast country safe and secure. And this incursion by Ukraine has blown a hole in that theory, quite literally. And so you could see Vladimir Putin decide to step up his aggression against Ukraine as kind of punishment of them retaliating in the way that they have.
Well, Afia, thank you very much. Good of you to join us this evening. Thank you indeed. And now sports. Super Eagles captain William Troung has arrived in Saudi Arabia ahead of his switch to Al Khulud. The 30-year-old is set to leave PAOK for the Saudi side ahead of the 2024-25 season after both clubs agreed on a transfer fee. The Nigerian international sorted out personal terms with Al Khulud last week, with only medicals left to complete the switch. Now, Troung has been on the radar of our Saudi club for some time, and it was confirmed last week that Shabab Al Ahli also sent in their offer for the experienced defender. Troung won the 2023-24 Greek Super League title with PAOK FC, but will now apply his trade in the Middle East next season. English Premier League side Arsenal are now in talks with Real Sociedad over the signing of Spain midfielder Mikel Merino. Merino was part of the Spain team that won Euro 2024 and featured in all 7 matches in the tournament, scoring a late winner against Germany in the quarterfinal. The 28-year-old has less than 1 year on his contract, and that may help Arsenal complete a deal, as he would be able to speak to clubs about signing on a free transfer in January. Arsenal have been active in this transfer market with both incomings and outgoings, selling Emily Smith-Rowe to Fulham in a deal that could rise to £34 million and signing Riccardo Calafiori for a fee of the region of £42 million. And former Chelsea manager Mauricio Pochettino has agreed to become the next head coach of the US men's national soccer team. The news of the expected hire of the former Tottenham and Chelsea head coach is significant for a US fan base looking for a big-name manager after former USMNT coach Greg Berhalter was fired following a group stage exit in the Copa America this summer. Pochettino, who is 52, has been out of work since leaving Chelsea by mutual consent earlier this summer after just 1 season in charge at Stamford Bridge. And that's all this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories we brought your way. Labour leaders have demanded apology from federal government and police over headquarters raid. And Nigeria inflation rate has dropped for the first time in 19 months. Also, we told you that reactions have trailed United States brokered ceasefire talks aimed at ending Sudan war. Remember, you can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on your screen now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, and Avo TV, and on YouTube as well. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.